working out to send it to me. He didn't. I need to call him up. And it was Biden, like, standing behind a woman, grabbing both her breasts. I mean, full on, more than even Dustin Hoffman is. I mean, he's cupping her breast. And she's holding his elbow, and she looks like she's having a good time doing it. And the woman being grabbed by Biden looks like she's liking it, standing right next to her husband. I've got to find that photo. Just do a whole system-wide search or call Pat Riley or whatever we got to do. But ask Q to call Pat Riley. Just ask him. Pat's on vacation with his wife for 2 days, a quick vacation. He works here. He's a great guy. It's like if I really want something, it's like, I really want that. No, you can't have it. But I want to show you this photo because I hadn't seen it. I found a bunch of other photos. It just shows the disconnect. Is there any photo of Roy Moore doing that? Is there any photo of Trump doing that? No. But again, in most of these photos, the women look like they love it. And I've been out in Hollywood, and I've experienced it myself where women throw themselves at you. And you've seen Elvis in the 50s, and girls are throwing their underwear at him, and people would try to rape Elvis. So sometimes women get really fired up and come after men, and it's not seen as rape-like behavior when they're doing it. It's mammals getting really excited about each other. But if it's not wanted, then it is sexual assault. No, that's not the one. It's that one. It's that one. It's that one. But folks are saying that's a fake one. Well, I know it's not fake. It's all the countless videos of him groping children, because you guys just found another one in there. No, that's not the one he had. It was another one. The point is we could run hours of video of Biden groping little kids. And so I know that stuff off C-SPAN isn't fake. That's the problem with fakes, though. They put fakes out to then discredit real research that we're doing. The point is that it's mainly Democrats they're reporting that are part of this big slush fund. So people keep asking me, why do you still like Trump and why do you leave the door open on more? Well, Al Franken admits the photo of him grabbing the woman's breast while she's asleep, flying back from Iraq for the USO. He admits that's real. And Franken's been known for that over and over again. He's Hollywood scum. So they're the ones that have the history. They're the ones bombarding our kids with sexual messages. They're the ones trying to sexualize everything. Not Roy Moore and not Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump never had any of these accusers until he ran for president. Here we have a Psycho Joe clip. I think it's important. Let's play this.
I want to gather some opinion pieces in response to this. I just have an incredibly uneasy feeling about this entire story, to be very honest, and tried to say that once yesterday, and it was as if a bomb went off.
And by the way, so for people out there, I know there are a lot of little right-wingers who are like 14 or 15 years old. No, hold on. And you have a blog post, you're like, oh, Mika's just saying this because she's a Democrat?
No.
I understand you're like, you go out and you play T-ball, then you come back in, then you do your blog post, and you have no sense of history. Mika Brzezinski, in 1999 and 2000, when everybody else in the Democratic Party was defending Bill Clinton, Mika has consistently said that Democrats were hypocrites. She's been saying it
Mika
for
is just
17 years. All right? So why don't you go back and, get your juicy juice and go back in your basement and play with your Legos?
Or will we fall down and hit our head?
A little history before you start talking about how Mika...
Will our brains get knocked out? Will we be found dead? And then the autopsy will get sealed by the police? I mean, what happens if we don't go drink our juicy juices? As you sit there and talk down to us like we're little kids. Oh, Mika, you're so wonderful with no viewers. Oh, Scarborough with your big Bozo the Clown Mars Attacks haircut. He may be actually an alien and he just rips that hair off. There's a big gray alien head. We're broadcasting worldwide from the ATX, Austin, Texas. I'm coming to you from the geographical heart of, I think, the greatest state in our wonderful union. But no matter where you are, across the fruited plain or Alaska or Hawaii or anywhere else in the world listening, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And I hope we all have a safe and happy and successful New Year. We've got Dr. Jerome Corsi, our Washington, D.C. main correspondent, joining us here in just a moment. We've got his articles up on INFOWARS.com. and on newswars.com. And I've got to say, Dr. Corsi, I'm really proud of him, has been leading the way on the Judge Roy Moore news, on Google, Facebook, and Twitter, and their monopoly behavior, on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac being looted for Obamacare, and on, most importantly, the DOJ being run by Hillary stay-behinds, Hillary Clinton Foundation stay-behinds, and now it's unraveling with a senior Justice Department official who was involved in the whole FISA court situation having to step down. We now know this other FBI agent who was very senior. He had to step down because he's clearly been involved, just as different congressmen are starting to realize. So this is a very, very exciting time to see the wheels coming off, and the Democratic Party stay-behind network that refused to leave the executive branch and that has been there trying to sabotage the recovery, to see that failing, to see the Russia narrative failing. Now they're saying, oh, our great proof is an email handed over with all the emails, the entire Trump organization, of someone in September of last year, less than a month before the election, or a month and a half before the election, sending us links to WikiLeaks with the keys to get into it. We were sent that hundreds of times. Everybody was. WikiLeaks was being interviewed by the New York Times at that time. Everyone was Fox News was having them on. They act like, A, WikiLeaks is Russian, when there's no proof of that. Then they act like if you talk to them, you're evil. Meanwhile, Hillary creates fake dossiers, pays $13 million for it. The FBI certifies it, and this is what they've got. This is what they've got. So advocacy group reports Twitter death threats against FCC chair. That got linked on Drudge the last few days as well. We're going to cover all of this with Dr. Corsi of INFOWARS.com. But now we have top DOJ official demoted amid probe of contacts with Trump dossier firm, or met during the 2016 campaign with Christopher Steele. And you've got all the rest of this happening. So the cover-up is unraveling. Hillary criminally creating fraudulent dossiers, fraudulent investigations, fraudulent warrants at the FISA court, then lying about the fact that warrants even existed. Email shows effort to give Trump campaign WikiLeaks. That's all they're hanging their hat on. Another Corsi article, FBI Director Wray, a deep state operative with ties to Comey. We're going to go over that. Meanwhile, Obama appointee judge. Oh, yeah, it's a big judge. The judge over the Flynn case. Should have led the show with that. Not just Justice Department high-level officials and the #2 FBI guy on the investigation with the fake dossier now off the case. We now have Obama-appointed judge mysteriously recuses himself from Michael Flynn case, but none of that's in the news. Judge also sat on FISA court during spying on Trump campaign. So you've got the very judge with these fraudulent warrants, which they covered up, sitting over in judgment over Flynn. I mean, it's all Clinton operatives. 97% of Mueller's team are Democrats and give money exclusively to the Democratic Party and cheerlead for Hillary, but it gets worse. The 3%, they've never given money and are apolitical. So what does that tell you? 97%, they admit that. So Dr. Corsi, when I say the wheels have come off, this has blown up in their face, Hillary's in deep trouble, I mean, I think clearly that's fair to say. This is absolutely burning them alive politically right now. Even mainline Democrats are having to admit that they are in deep, deep trouble. You've always got the latest. Where should we start with this whole spectrum of incredible news?
Well, I think you're right, Alex. I think this is the first time, and I'm confident, that the Democrats are actually scared that the whole Russia investigation is going to turn against them. I mean, these are pretty remarkable revelations that we saw yesterday with Christopher Wray, who, by the way, is another deep state operative. He was part of the Enron prosecution with Wiseman and Comey. And, you know, it's pretty clear that that was an operative prosecution that was largely discredited, overturned in the circuit courts. And Christopher Wray was part of that operation. Yesterday, he refused to answer questions about whether this Fusion GPS dossier, the discredited dossier, was used to get FISA court approval to wiretap electronic surveillance on the Trump campaign. And I think it's very clear, as Jim Jordan pointed out yesterday in the House Judiciary Committee, that this is at the core of the corruption. And now we find out that this judge who recused himself in the Flynn prosecution. We didn't know why until we found out that he is on the FISA court and could be perhaps the very one who gave the FBI approval to wiretap Trump and his campaign based on this lying, fake dossier.
And now we've got fake indictments out of the swamp, out of these kept grand juries. And the word is Mueller's looking at an indictment, maybe even of Trump, by Christmas. Are they crazy enough to try to pull this off when in front of God country and the whole world naked as jaybirds, they're all one big crew engaged in massive fraud openly?
I don't think it's going to happen. I think Trump is clearly gunning to impeach Trump. I don't have any doubt about that. And he's a clear operative with a long history of defending the Clintons in the Justice Department and the FBI. But I don't think he'll do it by Christmas. I think Mueller's biggest problem is that he is going to be exposed in this entire Uranium One scandal. And what you're going to find out is his entire prosecution is based on this Fusion GPS dossier. I mean, conceivably.
Well, of course, you've also got Strzok now. Congressman Jim Jordan and others are sure of it. And, of course, he was the head of the Russia operation. So, obviously, he'd be the guy that did it. That he's the one that brought the fake PP dossier to the FISA court to begin with. So the whole thing basically has to end. The investigation is a total fraud at that moment.
Yeah, and all the evidence that the Justice Department got through the FBI based on a FISA court order on this fraudulent Fusion GPS Russia dossier, it could conceivably all be thrown out of court. And then you've got the fruit.
And well, I mean, they admit the dossier is a fraud to begin with. So if the whole fake thing started with a fake dossier, the PP gate, and then you've got all these Democratic operatives going and lying to the court to get it, I mean, right there, it's a mistrial. It's over. You have to end the investigation because the whole thing was based on a lie.
Precisely. And I think even the intelligence estimate that they came out with, I said all these intelligence agencies agree Russia intervened in the election. I think that's likely based, too, on this Fusion GPS lying Russia dossier.
Well, sure, they now admit it wasn't 17. It was 4, and it was 3 individuals from the 4 agencies who were all Clinton operatives. Yet again, this is the phoniest thing, like a plastic banana. I mean, this is ridiculous. Let me ask you this, going to break. We're going to come back. What does Trump do? You know, I usually agree with Roger back when he said fire Mueller, but at the same time, this is hurting them more. It's a fraud. Even if they have the swamp indict Trump, if there's a grand jury swamp and the Swamp King, Mueller indicts them, that's going to blow up in their face. I think his other idea of a special investigator, a special counsel over Mueller to make him recuse, I think that's a way to really fire him, but without doing it by the letter of the law or the spirit of the law.
I think you're on the right track there. And when we get back, I want to explain how I think if Trump allows Congress to expose all the corruption at the heart of Mueller's investigation, at the heart of the FBI, you're going to have Mueller under investigation, and he'll have to resign as special prosecutor. Well, I think that's the best strategy.
And that was my next question after we say, what does Trump do when we come back? Obviously, you have a lot of contacts. I don't know how much we can get into this, but I heard about this months ago. Now it's admitted that the Justice Department for 11 months has been criminally investigating Hillary, Comey, all these junior people, senior people, and, of course, Mueller. So you're kind of foreshadowing what is already going on, the fact that was this a trap the whole time. Some people think Mueller's this big genius and really working for Trump behind the scenes, that this was a way to set up the Clintons, or maybe that he turned over to Trump secretly. We'll ask you that question as well with Dr. Jerome Corsi straight ahead. All right, Dr. Corsi's with us one more segment. I'm going to try not to interrupt like I was doing, but I want to just make sure we're covering every facet of this, because you got the head judge over the Flynn case recusing. Turns out they're involved in the FISA court. This is insane. You should have never put a judge that did the warrants for that then over the individual. You've got all these DOJ people having to resign at the highest levels. You've got this high-level FBI agent involved with the dossier and all the rest of it, then involved covering up for Hillary, and then involved being over Flynn as well. It's a very small-knit group that they've got running this whole kangaroo situation. And now we've got Senator Grassley and others saying this is a fraud. We've got Jim Gordon saying this is a fraud. And then there's a whole other backdrop Corsi's exposed about how the censorship's increasing. Facebook calls us now and is threatening to take all our Facebooks down if we don't remove videos. YouTube is targeting INFOWARS, saying it's copyright if I play videos of myself. Time Warner has declared ownership of my image and who I am, and YouTube has announced that they may just remove me completely because I'm owned by Time Warner. They have no contracts, no nothing. They just, I guess, want to get in a lawsuit. We've had lawyers for 2 weeks behind the scenes on this, and Time Warner says, we own you. You can't have your own site. It's insane. So I don't know what to say at this point. It's just, it's reached next level. YouTube targets INFOWARS video for featuring Alex Jones, says Time Warner owns my likeness. So Dr. Corsi, we only got like 8 minutes here. Try to run through all that we're facing and what you think the next shoe to drop here is.
Well, I think I just texted you a letter here that was sent by Chairman Grassley to the FBI, and it's focusing on Strozik. Now, key points of these 4 and 5 were what Grassley's focusing on is that Strozik headed this Russia investigation, and he was dealing with Christopher Steele, who is the British intelligence agent behind the dossier.
He's the PP man.
Paying them. Yes, and the FBI was paying for this dossier. The dossier is a lying dossier. It was the one that had all the sex stuff about Trump, and it was discredited widely. It was originally paid for by, I believe, one of the Republican campaigns. I think either the Jeb Bush or the Rubio campaign. And then the Democrats picked it up. The FBI, by the way, the Democrats paid for this dossier through their attorneys instead of the DNC, paid the money to Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie paid for the Fusion GPS dossier so as to kind of money launder where that payment came from. I think that's illegal.
Sure, that violates campaign finance law big time.
Right, and then you've got the FBI paying for this lying dossier with Strozik clearly anti-hate Trump and heading the Russia investigation. And then the next point, Grassley wants to know of any information where the FBI, through Strozik, was relying upon, referring to information in Steele's lying dossier to get FISA warrants, other search warrants, or any judicial process. I think what you're going to find is this lying Fusion GPS is the origin of the entire Russian collusion.
Sure, that's what Congressman Jim Jordan's saying as well. They're acting really scared, and members of the committee that have seen classified info have said, get ready, more is about to come out. Any intel from your sources up there about what more may be getting ready to come out? And the big enchilada that we mentioned before the break, what about the criminal investigation we now know that the Inspector General has been doing for 11 months of Hillary and Mueller and all the rest of these people in their investigation?
I'm hopeful the Inspector General is going to be honest, and I think so far the information we have on Strozik came from the Inspector General. That was hidden, that Strozik had been fired by Mueller, had been hidden since summer. That FBI investigation could demand that Sessions, and I can't figure out what's wrong with Sessions. I mean, he must be under some kind of compromise, but you know, this is all going to turn through the summer against the Democrats and the investigation.
I think it's already turning, and I think they know that.
Yes. And we're going to find out more. There's going to be a whole list. You saw when, you know, also, one of the congressmen yesterday read a list of people in the FBI to Ray and was asking, that was Louis Gomer, who said, how about this agent? How about this agent? Well, the Congress has got the information on just about every one of the investigators in Mueller's campaign being compromised as either pro-Hillary or hate
Yes,
Trump.
And why are they holding back so they can kind of Chinese water torture, drip, 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 and not shoot the lot at once?
Well, I think you're going to have they're going to let it come out through these hearings like they did yesterday. That was the first shoe to drop. And I also published today that Christopher Wray is an operative. He goes back in the deep state FBI with
exactly.
Wiseman.
So why in the world was he? Why did Trump move him as the nominee for the FBI head?
I think Trump has been, you know, ill-advised by it. Got to wise up to Washington. The people who are being advised to appoint are really Clinton operatives in many and clearly Christopher Wray is a Clinton operative.
I agree.
And here you're going to see Grassley and the other hearings. You're going to see the Senate Intelligence Committee, both judiciary committees. They're going to expose not only Strozik, but deep into the FBI, where this fusion GPS paid for, known it was not reliable, is the basis of the Russian collusion.
But now, Doctor, just to interrupt here, now that we have Orr, senior member of the Justice Department, resigning, the judge resigning with the case, Flynn, all the Strzok in big trouble and so much more, couldn't Mueller or any of these guys just flip back to America and just stop it and admit it's a fraud as the Clintons lose power and as their Saudi money was cut off by Trump? I mean, can't they realize we've already beaten them? And for the betterment of the country and their own selves, don't they know how to just give up?
I wish they would, but I think they're so dug into their anti-hate Trump that that's going to destroy them. Their hate Trump is going to destroy the Democratic Party. It's going to destroy Mueller's investigation. It's going to destroy the FBI. We're going to find deep, deep corruption of the Department of Justice. It's going to have to basically be closed down and start over again.
Exactly. I mean, the Justice Department, the FBI, is betting against a global reawakening, global populism, and an American resurgence and an exploding economy with a big, juicy Americana president. I mean, they're like stepping in front of a bullet train, and they are crazy.
Well, it's their own hatred. They're blinded by their own hatred of Trump. These people hate Trump so badly that they'll do anything to get them. And that's the DOJ has become a corrupt prosecution that will do anything to get a conviction. Lie, cheat, steal. I've been pointing this out in the Billy Waters case, where you actually have on record an FBI agent who for 4 years leaked to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about Billy Waters to try to get a conviction on insider trading. Then they turned a witness who lied against Billy Walters at trial. I mean, the whole thing in the FBI is corrupt from the head down. And it starts in the DOJ as well. It starts with Holder, with Lynch.
I know you're highly regarded with a lot of FBI people I know. What percentage, because they're either really good or they're really bad, what's the top half's completely controlled by globalists, or what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I'd say it's more than 40% of the FBI is completely corrupt. The agents in the field are the ones who are doing a good job and are not being listened to.
Just like everything else. All right, incredible amount of articles at INFOWARS.com. We don't have any writer as prolific as Dr. Corsi, and he's so on target. What a real national treasure. Thank you, sir. We've got Mr. Malik, a former top globalist. He wasn't really a globalist, but he was in the top ranks of them, in studio coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, the amount of insane news, the good things happening, the bad things happening, the ugly things happening, the fantastic things happening, it is just a quickening. It is insane. Bombshell, Roy Moore accuser, Beverly Nelson admits she forged the yearbook. That's huge. Top DOJ official demoted amid probe of contacts with Trump and the dossier firm. More FBI agents being taken off the case for being Democratic operatives. We have got the FBI director now, caught working for the Clintons as well. The Obama-appointed judge mysteriously recuses himself from Michael Flynn case. Turns out they were the one involved in the FISA court. This is a rigged deal, and the House of Cards is coming down. They tried to impeach Trump. Couldn't hardly get any votes on the House floor yesterday. We're going to play that clip coming up as well. That's just some of the news. Meanwhile, jobs report crushes expectations as hurricane impact fades. Meanwhile, they're just panicking, though the economy is coming back. But I've got the big EU news here. And remember, as goes the EU, so goes a lot of the world. It's globalism's last stand, the unelected private corporate system that is anti-free market, crony capitalist. They said if Hillary loses, we're going to fall apart. And they said now if the euro collapses, which they predicted it would, it's over. There'll be a new chance for real global free trade, real global freedom, and Americana worldwide, not kind of a new Soviet Union meets EU bureaucrats. So I've got a stack of articles here, some of them written by Ted Malik. Here they are. Pathetic. Appeaser Theresa May makes heavy concessions on money, regulatory alignment to the EU. So basically a backroom deal to screw Brexit. 7 days of creation, Trump's first week as president. That's a Theodore Roosevelt Malik article on WorldNetDaily.com. RT, United States of Europe. Germany, Schultz wants to consolidate EU, kick out those who disagree. They've got a new EU army. They're threatening the different Eastern European countries with 100,000 euro fines if they don't let illegals in. They're talking about forcibly bringing them in. So those are just some of the insane articles on newswars.com and prisonplanet.com. And again, Ted Malloch's a best-selling author. But listen, studying Davos, studying Bilderberg, studying the Aspen Institute, a lot of groups that he helped found and was involved in. I remember reading about Ted Malloch 25 years ago, studying key people in globalist organizations. That doesn't mean everybody in them is bad. But about a decade ago, I started seeing him really critical of it, saying the EU is going to fall apart, it's going to go down, it's authoritarian, and he got involved in all this to promote freedom worldwide. And now you've seen Peter Thiel do the same thing. More and more people, Sean Parker, former head of Facebook, come out and say, this is authoritarian, we got to stop it. So kind of the conscience of people that have been inside, I wouldn't say you were one of them, because since I got to read more of your stuff a decade ago, I mean, I realized, how did you get in there then? Talk about yourself. Explain how a fellow like you from Canada ends up at the very highest levels on the board of directors of some of the top organizations like Davos, kind of Bilderberg Public. What got you to the highest levels of it? And then what made you one of the early people to say it's going down? I mean, a real trailblazer predicting what we're now in the middle phases of.
Well, I'm from Philadelphia, not from Canada, but...
I forgot. You used to live in Canada.
I did my PhD in Canada.
That's right.
I have some Canadiana about me, but...
I'm from Canada.
I think that...
You're an American. I'm just joking.
Academic credentials actually still have some validity in our world. I've got, enough of those for about 10 people. So
as a Canadian.
Yeah. So when you have those, and at an early age you start doing things, and I was in the State Department when I was 28. I was running the UN in Europe when I was 35. People keep giving you other opportunities. They like your resume. They like the way you act, the way you think. And, it opens up a lot of opportunities. So,
by the way, his book that he inscribed to me is in my car. Will somebody go grab that out of my front seat of my car? Thanks. Go ahead. I want to show that.
You're reading it while you drive. You got to at least...
No, I already read your book, Davos, Aspen, and Yale. By the way, they're in my office. By the way, you're a good-looking guy there on the cover.
Well, that's a few years ago. I think that picture was taken in 1992, so some of us age better than others. But
so you grow up in Philadelphia, but you go to school in Canada, come back to the U.S., Yale, you name it. I mean, break down then that process.
Yeah, so I actually, it's a statement about career, not ambition, blind ambition, but something students can learn from. If you're a good student, if you work hard, if you're thoughtful, and I had some great mentors along the way who were very conservatives, in both in political philosophy and in economics. You have opportunities, you take them, you work in, different places, even in the private sector. In America, we go in and out of the private sector, so I've done that numerous times. And it builds up what we used to call a Rolodex, is really a network, and people keep calling on you to do things because you can actually deliver.
I was about to say, because you're not just big in academia, you've been really successful in business and also coaching corporations. I mean, just on a lot of stuff.
No, I've worked with 150 companies. I've worked on, I think I've been on 36 boards of both think tanks, universities.
So, again, what made you get into the power structure? And then once you're there, when did you start becoming that force against globalism in the middle of it?
Well, I think even at the beginning, I had an acumen, which largely grew out of my reading of the great books, which my father brought me up to read, and my Sunday school teachers who taught me about the history of Christianity. And I always had this kind of ethical dimension so that when I saw something, I could actually describe it as good, bad, or indifferent.
You're not Canadian, but you are a theologian then.
Well, I have some degrees in theology,
yes,
and I have certainly studied theology, and I am a practicing Christian, and that makes some other people, certainly in the secular and in the globalist world, very nervous besides.
We talked about it at dinner last night. I mean, there's a lot of Luciferianism in globalism.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So anyway, you're in the inside of this...
you don't want me to go there, do you?
Yeah, no, though. No, it's
well, we're going to go there a little bit later, next hour, but keep going, sorry.
Yeah, so you see a lot of things, you meet a lot of people. Some of them are fine actors, and I've had the ability to be around some very fine political corporate actors. I've worked for some really fine companies, but you also see a lot of really bad stuff. And I've not been afraid to name names. And in this memoir, which I wrote largely for my kids, because they asked me, "What is it that you do, Dad?" They didn't really know. I've been on a lot of airplanes, and I told them the story, and that's the story, and it's an insider's story of how you can be salt and light.
It's a powerful book. I learned a lot from it. But So you're inside the situation from the beginning. They knew you were pro-America, pro-free market. And I guess they kind of sold globalism early on as kind of Americana worldwide. But at what point did you really start to criticize it? And why did they leave you right in the middle of it if you were so critical of it?
Well, I think this is a gradual process. You know, in the 1992-95 period, globalization and Americanization were somewhat synonymous, as you suggest. And it became more and more apparent that these globalists had a very, very different agenda. It had nothing to do with America. They would use America funding, use American political prowess, but they really had their own agenda. And that's very evidenced in what I call the EU SSR, because it is really, just as I describe it, a kind of new Soviet Union, if you will, that has very, very strong globalist agenda. And it's apparent that this transatlantic relationship, which we have largely paid for since World War II, is built on the wrong premise. They've taken advantage of us. As Trump said, you know, we were really a goat. They took our money, they took our defense. We paid 80% of the costs of NATO, and we've looked the other way. Germany, which is a very wealthy country, as only the engine of growth in Europe, is paying less than 2% of its annual GDP for defense, 1.32%. I mean, we're paying for Germany's welfare state as a result of our subsidy of NATO.
That's really it, is globalists have used control of the U.S. government to parlay our wealth into all their own little adventures in the world and propping us up. And so as soon as Trump took the government's foot off our neck, suddenly things came roaring back, and all these entitled little globalists are now completely panicking. So I want to talk to you about, you predicted what's happened over a decade ago. Then give us the bird's eye view from an insider who wasn't an insider on what's going to happen next. Ted Malloch, straight ahead. We'll also tell you about his books. Stay with us. Joining us for the next hour and 15 minutes or so is Ted Malloch. He's an academic, business guy, best-selling author, been on the board of the Davos Group, been part of many of the top globalist organizations, but over the years promoting Americana and resisting it, and was one of the first people inside the organizations, was it over a decade ago, saying, hey, they're going down, it's falling apart, it's authoritarian, the EU is going to go down, America is going to come back. So just briefly, how were you able to predict it? What did you witness? And then tell us the next shoe to drop with Europe as people resist its unelected authoritarianism. Inside Europe, doubles down with an EU army, says you will accept the Islamic invasion, becomes even more pushy, repeating history. Even after they just witnessed the Brexit, it seems to only make them more arrogant.
Well, the answer to the first question is I think that you do analysis, you look at the options, you do future scenarios, you look at the trend lines, and I was an early caller in this game to say that this was going to happen, and in conversations with all kinds of leaders, both in the U.S. and in Europe, you know, we've been able to make that prediction. So I would say that in the Trump 8 years of administration, and I believe it will be 8 years of administration, we will see the world shift even more radically in our direction. America is back. That's just a huge statement in and of itself. And I think we have one person to thank for that.
And globalism is all about losing your nation states, losing your individual cultures. They admit that. And it's such an ugly, horrible final revolution. It is true tyranny. I mean, it's an attack on free will, and then here comes Trump, here comes populism. Why now?
Well, we don't eat European food. We don't speak European language. We don't homogenize everything so that there's no distinctness. I mean, the beauty of culture is its differentiation, its peculiarity. So I think we see this movement in Europe now. It's very strong in Eastern Europe. It's obviously very strong in Britain. There are elements in every single European country. I think the European elections are proving this, will prove it next year in Italy. All of these countries are moving back to their own nationhood. And there's no reason they can't all be great. I mean, greatness is infinitely wide. It doesn't mean they have to be at war or competing with each other. And I think that America sets the bar very high on that, and a lot of people still everywhere in the world will follow what's happening in America. So the world is moving away from this, new world order back to an order that has more to do with states and has to do with national localities.
A lot of people say, I don't care about Europe. But they have to understand, even the globalists themselves say, if Hillary loses, we're almost completely defeated. And then the European Union will fall next. Why is that a good thing? Well, it's unelected. It's authoritarian. It was snuck in under trade deals, just like NAFTA and GATT and TPP. And it's about self-determination. We're being conquered by this global cabal, and its main final command base is the European Union and the United Nations.
Correct.
And so, this is really the battle of the 21st century for freedom.
This is the battle of these decades. I think we've actually surprised them because we're starting to take back territory in a sense. The way I put it is, with Trump, we're no longer on the defensive. We're on the offensive. And everything he does, week in, actually day in, day out, that's what's so amazing about it. It's not just occurring here and there, willy-nilly once in a while. Every day something is happening on Trump's watch. Israel this week, Jerusalem, Middle East, Russia.
Border secured, economy coming back. And it's the perfect timing of how he waited and did all this. And then just right at the right time as the stars aligned, historically, boom. It's biblical.
It is. So I wrote an article some months ago, actually, time of the election, saying with Trump's election, it'll be like the first 7 days of creation. And I meant that not literally, but metaphorically. And the fact is, almost everything that I laid out in that article has happened already, and we've only witnessed the first year of Donald J. Trump.
Let's talk about the first 7 days of Trump's creation. In fact, I've got the article right there. Let's go back over that. Because you predicted it a year ago. Here we are a year later.
It's a checklist. It's quite amazing. What will he do? Immediately he'll end all of Obama's executive orders. Done. He'll try to stop Obamacare. He wanted to do it. It's the damn U.S. Senate that stopped him from doing it. And he'll, as I said here, cut off the head of the snake called ISIS. Done. You go down this list.
It's now defeated.
This checklist of some 30
The Russians declared 2 days ago they're defeated.
Yeah, they're defeated. But this list, there are maybe 2 or 3 things he still has to do. So he hasn't yet built the wall. I said that
By the way, CNN wrote articles yesterday saying Trump's keeping his promise keeper, and showed how he's done at least half or more of everything he said. And they were saying that was a bad thing.
Oh, yeah, they believe it's a bad thing because they're in the business of media malpractice. I mean, that's
a term you've coined.
It's a term I've coined, and I want you to use it, so I'm glad you're using it. But the fact is, CNN and other networks, but now it's all those networks, it's all the mainstream networks, are basically just anti-Trump networks. And people are turning it off. It's just like the NFL games. People have stopped going.
And that's my next question. The NFL has lost like 35% just this last year and a half, 50% total the last 3 years being political, and they don't care. They can't stop. It's just they're killing themselves.
Well, they're going to go out of business. They're going to have a going out of business sale. If that's what they intend to do, then put the guy back in charge, and they seem to have done that.
Don't they get that even if they kill Trump, that would make him a martyr, that they are going to lose?
Well, I don't even like to have that thought, and I pray that he has security every night. But the fact is, Trump is doing all the stuff on this list. This was my wish list of everything could happen in the best biblical account, and he's done like 90% of the stuff. Now, he's got to put more good people, I think, into the administration.
He's been successful with executive action because the globalists had put so much power in the executive to circumvent the people. But he, again, their strength, he made it their weakness. And now, TPP, boom, NAFTA, GATT, renegotiated, boom, 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 boom.
One after the other. These are things that people said he could not do. His advisors even said, well, maybe you should think about doing that twice, or how could you defund this part of the United Nations? How could you allow the Israelis to have a capital in Jerusalem? We're just fulfilling these promises, and it's an incredible...
Yeah, 30 years ago they passed a law to do this, and all the other presidents have agreed to it, and then Trump goes, oh, you're going to blow us up if they have a capital? Well, we can't live in fear.
Well, the next thing that happens, I'll predict it right here, is he'll solve the North Korean dilemma, which is really a Damocles sword hanging over our head. And the way he'll do that, and he's already, and then you hear some of his advisors like Madison McMaster's talking for him, the way he'll do that is escalate the rhetoric, which he's done. He's going to enforce a complete sanction. He's actually going to, I think, put an embargo on North Korea. He will then use EMP weapons in order to change the entire scenario, and we will see the end of that regime in North Korea.
Are you saying he'll move EMP weapons in to make them sue for peace, or he'll hit them with EMP?
I think he'll hit them.
Well, they're moving the troops and everybody in. Our military sources say they've been told we're going to hit North Korea.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is listen to the National Security Advisor. He said the chances of that are increasing, he said the other day by day.
So knowing all the establishment elite speak, you're saying this is serious.
It's going to happen, and I'll predict it's going to happen in the next 6 months of the year 2018.
Kim Jong-un better get his act together, boy. I tell you, this is crazy. I pray for peace. We're going to go to break and come back, and I want to get into things you want to talk about the world, where we are, what's happening from your perspective, being inside the highest levels of this system. By the way, folks, don't do your Christmas shopping with the big establishment stores if you don't want to fund the enemy or Jeff Bezos or any of that. Do it at InfoWarsStore.com. We have some of the best products out there. Amazing supplements, nutraceuticals, Patriot apparel, you name it. We have fluoride-free toothpaste fortified with colloidal silver and iodine. Colloidal silver, again, is great. So is the iodine. 50% off on that. Our vitamin mineral fusion, amino acid fruit punch, totally organic. That's 50% off.